Good morning. It's already near noon, everyone. So I'll keep my presentation quick. Let me introduce myself shortly again. My name is Warapon, or you can call me Fon, F-O-N. And I work as a sustainable design. But actually, I don't have a background in architecture. My background is in engineering. So it's a bit like something crossing from engineering, not even civil engineering. I did my big degree in electronics engineering, but now my job involves doing the sustainable analysis of my company. So, and I also beforehand I worked in Japan for a few years. So, and that was when I was interested in urban planning of Japan. If you ever have visited Japan, you see as a very nice, clean city, very well planned and very good public transportation in the city. So that's also why I was interested in the urban planning. So and that brought me into my current position. But eventually I end up evolving, and now my job involved doing the analysis of sustainability aspects of my company. So my presentation today is about climate resilience in property development, because my company, I will explain to you more shortly what my company does. But the first two words, climate and resilience, I think everyone knows the word climate, right? But the second one, resilience, is yes or no, is sometimes new, sometimes not new. Some of you may be very familiar with that word resilience. But I just want to give you a quick overview of what we are doing at Mqdc, my company, to achieve this climate resilience in property development. Okay, so my company has a philosophy called for all well-being, and that well-being means the well-being of actually all beings. Humans are beings, and also the plants, animals, they're all beings as well. So what we try to do is we try to create property. We do real estate, mostly residential condominiums. We try to create a property that benefits not only human but also plants and animals that lives as an ecosystem there as well. So this is part of the company. I work here at RSC. It's a bit misspelled here. Research and Innovation for Sustainability Center. So my job focus on the sustainability part of the company. So some of you may be aware that building sector is contributing to like 39% of all greenhouse gas emission of the world. So anyone knows what GHG stand for? I just mentioned. Are you familiar with the greenhouse gas, right? Greenhouse gas, yes, and yes. Just a quick overview. So greenhouse gas, yes, greenhouse. In Thailand, we don't really need greenhouse because it's very hot year round. But in like cold country, when you put a greenhouse, you can grow vegetables inside, because inside the greenhouse, the temperature will be warm enough. And this is the greenhouse gas is into the world, in our world, because now we are covered by a lot of greenhouse gas, and it traps the heat. The sun send the heat to the earth, and before the heat, some escape back into space. But now with the increasing level of greenhouse gases, the heat cannot escape into the space as much as before. So that's why our earth is warming up. And that is caused by the greenhouse gas. And building sector contributes to like 79% of the greenhouse gas emission. So breaking down that figure 39, 28 comes from building operations. What we mean by operations, meaning that once we have the building in place, when you turn on the light, you turn the air conditioning, that is the operation of the building, and that consumes energy. And how do we produce energy, electricity? In Thailand, we use mostly sometimes coal power plant or natural gas power plant, and that causes the greenhouse gas at the power plant. You imagine the power plant with the fume, with the smoke. That is the gases, and that's a greenhouse gas. Some of them are the greenhouse gas. So by operating buildings, by turning on the lights, turning on the AC, we don't have the smoke of the greenhouse gas here, but the gas of the greenhouse gas occurs at the power plant where electricity is produced. And the 11% comes from buildings material and construction. So you look around in this building, you see the concrete, the flooring, the tile. When it now here, right here, it doesn't emit any greenhouse gas, right? But at the factory that produces the concrete, the cement, at the factory that produces the tile, there is smoke and fume at the factory, right? And that was where the greenhouse gases occur at the factory. So that's why to have a building like this, we already emit a lot of greenhouse gases at the factory that produce the material, 11%, and the rest, 28%, is by operating the building. Okay, so just carbon emission in building, just a quick overview, wrap up just from that. The red, the yellow part is not easily be seen here, but the yellow part is called the embodied carbon. The carbon that is emitted in the material of the buildings. And the blue part is the operational carbon. Operational means when we use the building. So just the two terms of carbon emission in buildings. And okay. So you see a city, big cities like that. What you see is the materials that is used to construct the buildings, houses. And now that's why the built environment use a lot of materials, half the material extracted globally every year. And by 2060 across the world, like the equivalent of the city of Paris will be built each week. We are building a lot to keep up with the growing population of the total world. But again, when we create building materials, we also consume the natural resource, right? To get all the concrete, we use natural resource in order to create the material. So construction materials are responsible for 1/3 of the global resource consumption, and 11% of global energy related carbon dioxide emission can be attributed to the construction industry. It's just the same figures. Also, during construction, not all materials are used. There are waste, right? During construction, there are waste. Things that are not used are discarded. But where does those waste go? If it goes to landfill, then it also contributes to the greenhouse gas emission. Okay, apart from the buildings that we live in, we now moving on to the environment. What happens around the building? You can see here that the climate is changing. You can feel, right? So now the Earth is warming. We have the global warming. I think all of you experienced the heat yesterday. You went for a walk in Bangkok, right? Even it was like in the late afternoon, it was still very, very hot. So that's part of the average temperature of the Earth is increasing every year. It doesn't mean that we don't have winter. In some part, we still have severe extreme winter, but the average temperature of the Earth is rising. And what is the effect of global warming? So it can be something like thunderstorm, the one on the left hand side, because when the temperature rises, the water vapor from the ground will be evaporated into the air. And then when that water vapor accumulates into a big cloud, that big cloud turns into a thunderstorm. And thunderstorm has a lot of energy when it releases into like heavy rain. But on the contrary, the 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 hot air also absorbs water from the ground, from the soil. The water vapor evaporates from the soil into the hot air, making the soil very dry, and that can cause drought on the right-hand side, that drought in some part as well. And from the drought, because the soil is drier, and the forest can be dry as well. When there is some ignition, that small ignition can be turned into a big forest fire because the dry of the area. And of course, the lower right one, as the average temperature of the Earth is rising, the glacier, the iceberg is melting, so the mean sea level of the Earth is also rising, and that can cause a lot of problem to coastal cities. Okay, and this is also the heat that is experienced in Thailand. We experience a lot of heat, and even in Europe is that is affected a lot because in Thailand in general we still have the air conditioning system where we can like escape the heat, but in some part where air conditioning is not common, it can be like in Europe, then they have to find some way to relieve from the heat. So I think that I already mentioned the first part of my word in the slide, right? Climate. That was something about the climate. And now going to the second word of my presentation, resilience. So I think resilience is used in a lot of sectors, but it's the word resilience comes from the Latin word resilio, which means to bounce back. So if you don't get the picture, just I want you to look at this ball. The ball, imagine a ball is thrown and it hits the ground, then the ball will bounce back, right? Bouncing back, that is the meaning of the root word resilio in Latin. So resilience has the meaning from the word resilio, meaning to bounce back. So what does that mean really when we try to use this resilience word into the property development? It means that when we face some problem, we imagine the ground is some kind of problem. When the ball hits it, when we hit some problem, some ball will bounce back higher. Some balls will bounce back to the same height. Some ball may not bounce back at all. So that's how we recover back from the hardship or problems. So when we say about resilient property development, we mean that the property is designed and built to prepare for disturbance and from shocks and stresses, to prepare for it, and then when the troubles come, we recover or adapt to that problem. So that's why we use the word resilient property development. So coining all these words together, building climate resilience, we see that the Earth is having a lot of natural disaster from the global warming, right? On the right-hand side, we have the word adaptation because there are a lot of natural disaster like flood. I think we are all here because of we want to have something to do with the amphibious transformation, right? Because we are foreseeing a lot of flood, a lot of water in the future. And that is called adaptation. How can we adapt to the future that is so uncertain? It has, and on the left-hand side, mitigation. Because as I show you, because all this thunderstorm or forest fire or drought is in some part affected from the rising temperature of the earth, the global warming, right? The global warming causes the more thunderstorm, more flooding. Then how can we mitigate at the source? How can we emit less greenhouse gas so that we reduce the greenhouse gas in the atmosphere? So talking about the adaptation, the resilient part of the building, there is some standard called RELI standard. It has a RELI resilient building and design standard that take an approach to do the resilient design of buildings, and it helps like developers and architects to plan for the hazard and buildings. Like in this standards, it will tell if you have to prepare for the emergency. Imagine the big flood in Thailand in 2011. Some may have to like leave their home to stay on a dry ground. In this standard, it would say like if you can prepare for some food or water or even the toilet system to work for like 96 hours after the emergency, so that the resident in the building can still have some quality of life, basic quality of life, until like the help or evacuation arrive to a safer place. So that is something we can prepare beforehand, before the big disaster hit. And also at my company at Risk, we developed this what we call resilience shock and stress framework for property development. So it will categorize into three main categories: the nature and environment, how there are something that can be problems to property development, like flooding, like future climate. If we experience this kind of extreme heat, the heat wave, how can we ensure the well-being of the people inside the building? Of course, now some of you may say, okay, if the outside is hot, then we just turn on the AC. But that affects the energy use as well, right? What if the power plant is also like everybody in the country turn on the AC and the power plant cannot cope with the high demand of electricity, and then the power plant trip? Then it will be, imagine if you have to live in the hot city without the AC. Then something that can help cool down the building, natural ventilation, something that can be designed beforehand. That is something that can be included in the design before the building was built. And that was about the natural. The lower part is about the infrastructure of building, like utilities, public. As I mentioned, like if the grid electricity is down, how can we ensure the quality of life of the residents for like at least 3 days, 4 days? Or you can imagine when the COVID-19 hit, and then the healthcare was disrupted, right? When you go to a hospital, but then the hospital service was so overwhelmed with the patients. That could be something, the next pandemic could happen again, who knows? And how can we prepare the buildings to be like, to provide at least some certain quality of life for the residents? And on the upper left-hand side is in the cultural and economic aspect, or unrest and attack. If there is some protest outside, can we still do our own job? Can we still have things delivered to our buildings? Something that is that something that we can prepare beforehand? So I like this drawing. It says that the smallest wave is like COVID-19. Now we already recover from that. And now we are somewhere in the middle of recession. I think that the economy is not that good right now. And then the next big wave is the climate change. We can sometimes experience now in terms of the extreme heat wave. But the next one, the biggest one, is biodiversity collapse. This is something I want to talk about as well, because is something that is also important, but not really realized in our day life. So that's why I'm going to talk about the project that our company is developing called Forestiers. Is property development in Bang Na area in Samut Prakan province, just next to Bangkok, to the east of Bangkok, or south of this place. So this is the land plot, and you see in the middle, we planted trees into the middle of the project. This is about almost 400 rai of spaces. And in the middle, there is a deep forest section where we don't allow people to go inside. But then around that deep forest, people can take a walk and take a stroll, do picnic in that area. And it's surrounded by the residential villas, condominiums. And on the north side is the commercial district for the residents and visitors. So before the development, what we did was we camped out on site for 3 months. What we did was trying to record the living things, animals, plants that live there, like fish or snakes or whatever. We record what we found there. Okay, and we see, we also measure the trees, the existing trees of the site. So why we did that? Because as our company philosophy for all well-being, usually when, like traditionally, if we build something, we just clear out the land, build something, and then maybe do some landscape to put some shrubs or small trees back in place. But as our company philosophy is for all well-being, so we want to make sure that we don't, that the existing species, if it was not invasive, if it was not alien species, it can be brought back into the site, or some big trees that can be moved to another place during construction and then moved back to the forest. And this is because we understand that looking back into that picture of the 4 waves, right? The climate change, we can now feel something, the effect of climate change, but the effect of biodiversity collapse is still far away. But we know that it will come if we don't try to prevent that biodiversity loss. So we try to make this our project Forestier to be an ecosystem for the animals and plants that live there, so they can nurture each other, living mutually, benefit each other. And this is the photo of the project, with a lot of trees and canopy walkway that we can walk into the forest. And we also explore some new material because, going back to about the greenhouse gas emission, concrete emits a lot of greenhouse gas. So we try to explore the use of timber into the construction. This is a CLT, cross-laminated timber that we use in the clubhouse. So showing that timber can be, in Thailand, if we go back 100 years before, all our houses were from wood, from timber. But now when we have high-rises building, we turn everything into concrete and glass. But now we are exploring how to use the timber more and more in buildings. And this is a picture of what we call central utility plant. Because in buildings, if you see, you do a lot of air conditioning, right? If it's a split tie system, it will have each compressor outside that blow hot air out, you see, right? You have the compressor outside your room, your home, and that blows the hot air outside. But it's not good for imagine we have a big condominium buildings, hundreds of rooms. If we have hundreds of compressor blowing hot air out into the forest, it's not good for the overall of the project. So in our project, we don't have the split type air conditioning system, but what we use is that we call the central utility plant. In this plant, we create create the chilled water, cold water, about 5, 6, 7 degrees Celsius of water. And we use that chilled water, we supply the chilled water into the buildings. And then it is exchanged to the air to create the cold air, cool air inside the room. And by doing this, it is more efficient and than having separated air conditioning system. Because for a mixed-use project like that, we have different demand during the day, right? During the day, there will be retail, office that use the air conditioning system. And then at night, it will be the houses that use the air conditioning system. So this building can be run all the time and achieve the efficiency that we want. And also we can create the cool water during the night time when the electricity cost is lower, and then store that cool water inside the storage tank, and then supply the cool water all day. And that it saves more on operation cost as well. Yeah, so this is the utility tunnel. That cold water will be run inside this tunnel to around the project to supply the cold water. So this is like a summary of what we did. The upper left, the energy saving from using the central utility plant, and it helps reduce the carbon dioxide emission compared to using the separate split type system. And also we have like things like EV charging or net zero water discharge as well, because inside our project we designed the pond to absorb the water used and then try to treat it inside and use that water for irrigation of the trees in our project as well. And the trees can help maintain good air quality by doing the filtering. Total area of forest is like 48,000 square meter, and we have the canopy walk for the residents and visitors to walk around in the forest. And so far we recorded more than 500 species of plants and animals combined, and insects as well inside our project. So yes, I think that's all from me, from a presentation. I hope now you have a picture of climate and resilience, right? Remember the ball bouncing back and how we try to do that into our property development project. So thank you very much.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Boraporn, for this topic. And anyone have to question, please raise your hand again and feel free to ask. It is a very important topic for today because of yesterday, you feeling hot, very, very hot this weather. Okay, because of the global warming. That is a important issue for nowadays. Everyone, this joy.
Or maybe everyone's hungry. You can talk to me during lunch if anyone wants. Yeah.
Okay. If you have the question or something during the lunch box, Miss Borawan, Miss Borapon is have to lunch with us. Okay. I think they is very hungry right now. It's a little bit shy. Okay. So thank you, Ms. Borapon Bunjakano from MQDC and RISC. Right? RISC, I'm sorry for pronunciation. Okay, so much for today. Thank you for today. And so can you keep this resort, the slide to for hand out for students? Thank you so much. Okay.
May I ask some question? Actually, I love Magnolia, MQDC, and Forest here so much, but I have never visited yet. But I love it from the television or magazine, and I think the real estate that think about green space at BMA would like to push private sector make by themselves, but I feel MQDC can do it yourself without policy or without pressure. I feel Magnolia can do something that good by yourself and very impressive for me. And the question that I would like to ask you is how you manage about the green area and the big tree in the project and make the project green all the time. Do you have the secret that you can share the student and for me today too? Please.
Okay. Thank you for the question. And so the forest, it was planted from seed, not I mean in the forest, no, not the landscape one. In the forest, the trees were planted from seed, so that's why it was very strong. It will have the right root, and I don't know what it's called. And also we use the method called Miyawaki method. This is a forestry method from Japan that let the trees like compete. The stronger one will be taller, and that in that case it will create like a layers of trees, the tall trees, the middle tier trees, and lower shrubs. It resembles the ecosystem in a forest where like different kinds of trees will do different jobs in that part, right? So in that way it is more like sustainable when the ecosystem is in place. Then we don't have to take care of that tree much. I mean, in the forest, because if we normally when we see the landscape, right? If it's like only one kind of flowers, one kind of trees, then you see a lot of people tending the garden, using a lot of water, using a lot of fertilizer. But in forest, we don't need. You imagine the real natural forest. There's no people doing that job. The ecosystem there will take care of themselves. In the soil, there are a lot of bacteria or a lot of microorganisms that doing the job, bringing nutrients from the fallen tree leaves back, bringing into nutrients into the root, and the tree can absorb that nutrient back. That we try to create that kind of ecosystem. So, and it takes time. Yeah. You're welcome.
Okay. There is a secret. Secret to keep the tree grow by themselves. Uh, green. There is a green property. Like you buy the dwelling and you earn that resort by this project too. Okay. Okay, we have run out of the time. Thank you so much for the speakers, for Ms. Tipawan and Ms. Warapon.